Hey, welcome to the Higher AV podcast. My name is Joe Way. I am your host, and boy, do I have a good one for you today. Um, this is my annual Christmas episode. I am excited. This is one of my favorite weeks of Christmas. And I guess I say I'm going back to the roots. I started by doing Christmas episodes, and over the years, it has changed, and I've skipped some. But as I mentioned in my the Thanksgiving episode, I take a little time off in December, and then spend these couple just kind of doing reflection, but also kind of what this time means to me. So this Christmas episode, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and not necessarily do the main Santa's bag of stuff, but instead just want to talk about kind of the season and things that have gone with me, how it impacts me, and hopefully it's a way you can see it if it impacts you. I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling right now. um but that to be said, next week, I got a very special episode for you all. I think you're going to enjoy it. Followed by, I'll start 4 weeks in a row of some ISE prep with some incredible guests coming in and chatting with our guests on things that'll be going on at ISE and some great news coming up there. So, but that to be said, the holiday Christmas episode. This is Christmas week. I'm actually recording this on Christmas week because I kind of want to script some things, but on the flip side, I also didn't know exactly what I wanted to talk about. So I kind of wanted it to come to me. Um, and so you're listening to this on December 23rd, maybe, depending. Maybe you take time off and don't listen to any podcasts, and Christmas is just a couple of days away. Christmas Eve, obviously tomorrow. Um, and I was kind of thinking this year, like what it's been a transformational year for me. I'll definitely say that. And obviously people think of, I've lost almost 80 pounds since ISE last year. So that's 11 months, 10 and a half months away. And so, which is amazing, kind of getting a little teeter off. I'm trying to lose a little more, but my body's saying, no, I think you're done. Um, and so obviously that's the obvious one, but just as well of just kind of changing lifestyle, refocusing on what's really important. I think, we say that during the holidays is kind of grounding ourselves in what's actually important to us and life. But you know, you know, work gets in the way, life gets in the way, things that happen. We spend so much of our time focused on tasks, and not really the ability to step back, which is kind of what I want to do with this episode. I don't know exactly where I want to go. I was hoping it was actually going to come to me. So if I just ramble, enjoy this little bit. Maybe you're just putting on some earbuds and taking a walk, or just sitting here and having me on in the back. But I can't talk about Christmas without obviously talking about the birth of our Savior. My single favorite Bible verse, and especially around the holidays, is Isaiah 9:6. It's famous verse. You probably have all heard it, whether you are religious or not. Isaiah 9:6 is for us. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Um, and that that verse really hit me. And I think a lot of parallels between my year and also what we do. I think there's these four concepts that are said there in um, this prophetic verse, obviously written as part of the Old Testament, prophesying toward that Messiah that will come, that came in the form of Jesus. And these four ideas of Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. And I will say for me, I've really, really focused on and been impacted by all 4 of those things in this last year. Um, I think about, wonderful counselor. I had a big kind of, I'm gonna say, coming to Jesus moment this year, and it really started after ISE and just realizing, "Hey, I gotta do something." I didn't like where I was going. Um, Obviously, letting, kinda getting involved in the industry and traveling and, doing the after parties and the drinking, seeing the weight go back on and all of that and saying, "Okay, I really need to do something. I need that wonderful counselor that came, through God." And that was really my focus and saying, "Where is that strength gonna come from?" Because that strength isn't from me. And if the strength were based on me, it will fail. And that was where I did this return to say, let me focus on exactly what is important, and that is the relationship with God. I think that, we all need that counselor in us, and, I obviously pray for you all that you find that, um, in a relationship with God, and knowing that this week is the one where we celebrate that, over or 2,000 years ago, right? That we were given that counselor and the one that we can rely on no matter what. Um, and the one that can give us the strength. So if there's something you're struggling with, I know a lot of people at this time think, "Hey, what's my New Year's resolution? What am I going to change?" And everyone's, then the joke becomes, "How long will your New Year's resolution last?" Um, I gotta say that if it weren't for the counselor in God, this year's would not have lasted. In fact, I don't know that I actually made the resolution to change because it was after ISE. It still came a month into it, but I knew that if it were my own power, it would not happen. I needed to be able to turn over and turn myself over and let the strength that can only come from him be um, what was going to take me through it. Um, we're always sitting there in life and wondering, how am I going to carry through this? Whatever storm hits us. I know there's so many of you that I've heard over this year who've lost family members, who've gone through health things, who've gone through job changes or layoffs or things along those lines. And if we know that always struggles will come, we live in a time of trials and tribulations. We know that. They'll never stop. At least not in daily life, but, for now. But the only way I've found to get through that is to not trust in my own abilities, to know that it's really God's abilities and those who are there to serve and support, um, are the ones that can take us through it. Um I think professionally, and I guess I should tie this to AV because, well, this is the Hire at AV podcast, so I should talk about AV. Um, in our roles, we are always having demands. Whether if you're a support person and you've got, trouble tickets always coming, if you're an installer or engineer and there's always another project happening, if you're a leader and there's always a budget issue or there's staffing issues or things that you're always having to deal with. Again, those will always come. But where do you find that peace? Um, your counselor can be in your people. Right? We need that, if it's at home, if you find that peace through a hobby, if you find that peace through your boss, ideally you work in a situation where your boss and yourself can come to the wisdom to make it through it together. That's the strength that I hope you can find. Um, And I've learned this year that, well, I have achieved a lot in my career. And, I do have the ability. I'm a workaholic. Everyone knows that. But on the flip side, nothing has been sustainable or actually felt valuable except that this year I made it very important to not rely on my own strength for everything. And the coolest part about that is I've seen other people come on this journey. Maybe they always were, and maybe that's the thing to you. There's always people who are there with you and who are the ones who helped you get to where you are. But when you turn over yourself and you humble yourself, that it's not your own strength and abilities that take you through it, but that pushes that those behind you, that's when you get to see the beauty in their work. And that really has been my focus this year. And I've even explained a lot of it in the writings that I've done is actually understanding the value of team. I've always preached it. Um, but I really saw it this year when I've turned over that ability from myself and into others. So that's kind of wonderful counselor idea. Next thing that Isaiah talks about is mighty God. I've already said this, just in the ability that this isn't me, but the fact is there's something more powerful, and I think that just mighty God is are two words that have so much strength, right? Um, Things are bigger than ourselves. Right. There is bigger purpose outside of ourselves. And while we focus so much on our jobs, right? We have bills to pay, we have families to support, we have lives we have to lead. The fact is there's something bigger than us. There's something um that that comes from the power of him. And that is that, God doesn't just send a message, he sends himself. He is mighty, he is powerful. I think in our um in our the amazing, like if we look at what Christmas is about, God is amazing, but is huge, powerful, almighty, everlasting, all of these things beyond a scope that we can imagine, yet comes in the form of a baby, comes in the form of an infant, vulnerable. And I think that's one of the things that I've also had to learn this year, that my leadership has gotten better when I do it through vulnerability, right? That strength is comes from being vulnerable, being relatable, understanding that we all go through the same struggles and the same issues. Their scale might be different. Timing of when we go through them might be different. Um, but it's not about conquest. It's about vulnerability. It's about understanding um, that all the power in the universe can be bundled up into an infant, and knowing that with care and with compassion, that power is what can get us through everything. I think that in our jobs, right? We people always joke, oh well, if you leave, people will be sad, but you'll be replaced tomorrow, right? The job posting goes back up, um, and while there's a reality in that, it's also recognizing that what we do is bigger than ourselves, right? And again, bringing this back to AV, our universities are bigger than us. I would be crazy to think that, I like to think that I do great things for the university and that they get the value they're paying for. Um, but the fact is, the university has been around for over 100 years, and it will continue to be around even while I'm not. So what we got to do for a bigger mission. I even think that as I work in church tech, that's obvious, right? We're doing that for the mission of God, and we're the mission of the message getting out. Um, but recognizing that our tasks have a bigger purpose. Um, what while we focus on, signal flow, and we focus on uptime and metrics and serving our customers, all important things, to realize that when the students are there, whatever that message is that they're getting through that presentation has value. And it is a value because it forms and changes lives and their lives. And that's bigger than us, right? It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day tasks, but it's important to recognize that um, what we do, and I think about this when I think about like Dean, going back to, I think it's episode 5-ish or so, when I um, when I interviewed Dean, and he talked about how when he was at West Point, right? You know, those cadets are learning something that will save lives. And every time a projector goes out and that lesson can't be taught, it could be a tangible impact. They're learning for something bigger themselves, and that's defending our country and creating peace on earth, right? Well, for us, we are also doing the same, right? Now, maybe not to an obvious example, but it's not just another class. It's not just oh, they'll be fine. You're sorry you can't use the tech this time, but we're empowering lives that are bigger than us. Um, and I know that that's one of the things that really hit me this year too, going back to recognizing that as my team has been able to step forward because of that empowerment, because of um, that recognition that I need to step down so they can step up. Um, that's where I've seen it this year. Next kind of idea in Isaiah is everlasting Father. Um, you know, um, as leaders, as I just mentioned, we have a responsibility, right? Something we're serving something bigger than ourselves, but also it doesn't turn on and turn off, right? I mean, I know this isn't necessarily something to say work culture and you're always on or something along those lines, but I mean is um, we don't just show up in the little moments. While it's important, we have to show up always. It's our importance when you think about everlasting Father. What is a father supposed to do? A father is supposed to create a safe space, right? Create safety and security. I know I'm using kind of traditional, stereotypes, but that's the idea: strength, security, comfort, provision. Right? Those are the aspects we tie to it. And as leaders in AV, even if you're, whether you're a tech, you're still a leader from where you're at. Those are the things that we also need to do. And that strength helps us through the trials. I think about this year in higher ed, right? How many of us had federal funding pulled? How many of us had budget freezes and hiring freezes? This was a year that a lot of punches came, probably the first big one since COVID, right? Where there were things that were outside of us, yet we've been able to navigate it. And we've been able to navigate it because of that strong foundation. Um, I know for me, that's where um, that strength that I was able to have is because I knew that God is going to be everlasting. This wasn't what I needed to do was not going to be something that was temporary. That even when I do a fall and make mistakes, and boy, am I good at making mistakes and falling. Um, God's always there, always forgiving, not necessarily accepting. There's a difference between forgiveness and acceptance, but knowing that if I made that change, that I was not alone, I was not forgotten, I'm not abandoned, and I know that's what's been able to help. And I think that's what we have to do for our communities and our staff as well. Is do we and think about this? Do we create a space where they feel safe, where they feel supported, where they feel secure? That how we act today is how we'll act tomorrow. That who we are and our integrity behind it is always there supporting. That to me is what's important. And I've seen that parallel because I felt it in my year. Changing myself personally has been able to move into that professional and empowering others and knowing that I'm here for them. I say as a leader that I have two jobs, right? Get my staff the resources they need in order to be successful, and then get out of their way and let them do it. And I think that's so important. Um, it's so important that we do that. And and we mirror the strength of an everlasting Father when we do that for our teams. When we know that something isn't just temporary or seasonal, but yet it's who we are, and we're there for them forever. It's not just optics and in the daily smiles and all. It's security where they know that we have their best interest forever. And we know that not all of our staff are going to always be with us. But at the time they are, did they become a better person? Did they become better in their career? Did they move forward from the time that they invested in our organizations? And I think that's extremely important. And fourth and kind of final aspect of Isaiah 9:6 is the idea of Prince of Peace. Yeah, this one I'm going to say is kind of I'm actually going to carry forward as um, my 2026 resolution. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot, especially if I look at how HEPMA grew and how my career grew and the accomplishments. While I'm thankful and everything, like so much to be proud of. It's great to see the lives that have changed. I also think that it was done at a cost, personal peace and also peace with others. Um, and I think, and I've written a lot about this recently in my business of AV columns, and that tension and restoration, um, or tension that comes through conflict, and not to say conflict for the sake of it, but um, recognizing that as we grow, so do our relationships with others. It's easy to, especially for me, right? I'm a forward person, a public person. Um, it's easy to kind of take that spotlight. But people who are actually purveyors of peace don't do that. They do restoration and they bring people together so that what's broken is restored. And there's nothing better than a second chance and nothing better than restoration, because reconciliation brings a peace um, beyond all understanding. In the Hebrew, it says, there's the idea of shalom is kind of that peace, but it's used twice. Shalom, shalom. It's a perfect peace. Um, and that's one of the phrases I always keep is, where can I find perfect peace? This is my call for this next year of how can I not just clear peace, not being the absence of noise and tension, but the perfect peace is the presence of a wholeness where unity comes together. And I think that I encourage it, whether you have it, if there's areas where there's conflict with someone who you work with, is there conflict in your family or a family member? Is there conflict in the way we're handling a project? But can we find that perfect peace? And we know that it comes from the Prince of Peace, as Jesus is referred to in Isaiah, and that Prince of Peace is the one who can do it. And I know I'm going full circle here. It's intentional by the author, that we that what we do in is the peace within ourselves creates peace with others, but that peace only comes from God. He's the one that's able to create that and is the living example of a peace that, um, as I mentioned, is forgiving, is caring, is uplifting. Um, Christmas, it doesn't just announce that peace is possible; it announces that peace has a name, that it's personal, um, and it comes from our Savior. And so I know that that's where I want to this next year really be a better example of that. And we always say, if you're a believer, and we talk about being Christ-like, and that's living that example and letting people see Christ through us, because we are examples of the gospel on earth. And that is my goal. I like to think I've come a ways this year, and that's been a change, but I know it's a refocus. And I hope that my life can be used to create peace for others. And I hope that for you, that You are that person in your office, right? That when things happen, do people come to you? Do they see you as that Prince of Peace? Um, and because they know that you've got them, that you can create the quiet in the room, that you can keep the calm amongst the tension. That's a huge leadership thing too. It goes back to that vulnerability, and that strong leaders have ability to do that, not lead through force, but through compassion. So that for me is where I want to go. And and again, just kind of reading back Isaiah 9:6, just so you all remember. And it is the story of Christmas. It's the prophesying of the Messiah to come that came in the form of Jesus in the manger and as a baby. That Isaiah 9:6 says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace." And I hope that this year and this holiday season, this Christmas, I do wish you all a Merry Christmas. And I hope if you've just celebrated Hanukkah, or you celebrating Kwanzaa, if you're celebrating New Year's, whatever you celebrate this year, I pray for that peace. I pray for the comfort of the counselor. I pray for you finding everlasting joy, and that knowing that everything is bigger than us. But we have a part that we can play to make it all better. We have a part we can play that has value and meaning. For me, that meaning is found in Jesus, and that meaning is found in our Savior. I'm not ashamed to spend my episode talking about it because it defines who I am. Even if I turn the wrong directions, we all fall, we all fail, we all do things where guilt. I'll say, there's being honest sometimes. Well, for sure I'm a sinner. I know that. Gosh, people will tell you that. There's times you screw up and you wonder, gosh, I'm a horrible person. But we know that forgiveness and that comes, and there's always a change, and that's possible, and there's an anchor we can rely on, and there's a weight that we can draw upon, um, and that's the remembrance that happens during Christmas, and remembering that he came in the form of a vulnerable child, but with the power to control the universe and be the strength that we need um, to be the people we want to become. So, with that, I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Happy New Year. And we'll be back before New Year's with a special episode. That is next week. I hope you do listen to it. I hope you enjoyed this. I love you all. I love every one of you as listeners. Um, we have a wonderful industry. We have a wonderful vertical. Um, Obviously, if you're listening to this, it's because it means something to you, this show. And I want you to know that means something to me. Plenty of other podcasts you could be listening to. So I thank you for listening to this one. Um, it's not possible without you. You all are my Christmas gift. Hopefully, I can give you back oomph of any value. Um, and this next year is going to be a great one. As I've mentioned, we're kind of going back on track. We're doing some great things ahead. I think you're going to enjoy this coming year, um, and I pray for you all that this becomes the year for you, and that you've had an incredible 2025. You'll have even a better 2026 ahead. So love y'all. As always, you can find me at Josiah Way on all the socials. Make sure you go join HETMA at hetma.org, and follow at Hired AV everywhere. As always, all the opinions expressed here are not solely those of any respected institutions, sponsors, partners, organizations, people that want to sue me. If you didn't like this, there might be better. If you didn't like these opinions that I had, there might be better ones the next time. And there probably will be when you see who this guest is. So, all right. Love you, fam. Take care.